As an educated meathead, I want to be doing everything I can to recover from each training session. Rapid reboot compression therapy is one of the tools in my tool belt that I not only use in just my office, but myself after every single leg session, and it really makes a difference. Use my promo code Dr. Marvin Says to save money on any of the compression systems. That is definitely Dr. Marv approved.
Everyone thinks they're training hard, but most people are barely training at all. Sloppy form, endless rest, and zero intent. Vince Gironda laid out the blueprint decades ago, and almost nobody followed it correctly. This week on Between Two Dumbbells, we go back to the future.
What's this?
Don't take money, don't take fame, don't need no credit card to ride this train.
I'm your host, Skip Hill, and I'm bringing over 40 years of bodybuilding experience to the table, including over 25 years of online coaching. After a long hiatus due to contract renegotiations, I am again joined by my co-host, Dr. Marv, a.k.a. The Educated Meathead. Ladies and gentlemen of the audio radiance, you're Between Two Dumbbells. I'm excited about today's show, Marv.
Yep.
This is one of my favorite trainers. Totally ahead of his time. Some of the listeners are going to be like, oh gosh, of course, Skip goes with another old head. I don't know anything about this guy. I don't know why he does that. But here's the reality of it. This guy was so far ahead of his time. He was well respected back in the day, make no mistake, but kind of an asshole. I mean, the guy really at his core was kind of a dick. He was very matter of fact, very arrogant, but incredibly knowledgeable. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, my perspective has always been that he was kind of like, people looked at him like he was crazy until they used the methods. I mean, the people at his gym were very clearly, he had what? Hollywood stars. He had a lot of Olympia, competitors, top level bodybuilders. But if you weren't on the same page with him, you were in his gym doing exercises that he didn't like,
He would kick you out.
You're gone. Like, just get out of here. And correct me if I'm wrong, but did he not tell Arnold he was fat and was not impressed with at least one of his Olympia wins? How do you tell? Yeah, I mean, maybe at the time he wasn't the greatest of all time, but I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Tell someone, I'm paraphrasing, but you know what? You're fat. I don't like the way you look.
Yeah.
You need to be leaner. And that was his thing. So the reason that I think this is a good topic is because, is this not where bodybuilding has started to go within the last 10, 15 years? So I'm looking at it going, geez, just bring this guy back, clone him or something, because a lot of what he said, some of it was kind of crazy. But I mean, when you're out there and you're outside of the box, what's going to happen? A lot of what you're saying is going to work and it's going to be great. But then there are going to be those things. Okay, that one's kind of crazy. We need to set that one to the side. So I know I've got a list that we could go over here in a little while, but I want to get your thoughts on the Iron Guru. Arguably one of the best trainers, if not the best trainer.
Considering he was, so remember, this was in the 40s and 50s. Like, he opened his gym in 1948. And then, he worked with Arnold before Arnold became Arnold, but like, he helped Larry Scott. What other names I got down? Clint Walker, Don Howarth. He did all the movie stars, right? So he gets a lot of hate. I look at him as like the equivalent of Dan Duchesne, but for training. Right? Like, so far ahead of their time, a little out there, not the nicest people in the world, but like, there was no studies. He was going against the grain of what people were doing, right?
Pretty sure Vince just rolled over in his grave when you compared him to Dan Duchesne, only because of his stance on gear.
Yes, he's very anti.
Yeah. Well,
and then according to him, 36 whole eggs was the equivalent of taking testosterone. So but like, again, for the most part, absolutely incredible. And he was the first like aesthetic based trainer.
Yeah.
Right. So,
well, and that was kind of the core, like the main reasoning behind his selection with exercises and stuff like that. Now, real quick before we get into the training, because obviously we want to talk about the training, but I do want to touch on the gear, because the way that I've always known it was, yes, he was anti-gear on the surface, But I think underneath the surface, he was accepting of moderate gear use, but not the crazy above and beyond where even back in that time frame they were starting to go. And I think that's why he had the stance that he did and came across on the surface as being very anti-gear. But I mean, he had to know what was going on. Come on.
Yeah.
I don't think he really expected everybody to be natural. He just didn't want everybody to rely on the gear, saying that it provided a different look.
Yeah. Yeah, like he was like, let's get perfect execution. He was obsessed with symmetry, high reps, constant tension, whole food choices, high protein. He was very low carb, very, very low carb advocate.
I'd like to see, like, if we could take the logbook phase back to his gym and see what happened if you saw a
He would
logbook.
hate it. He would hate it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because he's big on, we'll talk about it. Like, if it's too heavy and your form's breaking down, immediately stop it. Right. So,
well,
like,
and his volume was so high. And one of the things he said was, I mean, I looked at the volume and I was like, oh my God,
I would die.
And his argument is, if you're going that heavy, well, number one, there's no way you can have that kind of volume. I mean, let's be real.
Correct.
So, and there's no way. I mean, he kind of put those very, very short rest periods, what, 15 to 30 seconds?
Yeah.
Sometimes in some of his programs.
It was cardio almost. Yeah.
I almost wonder if he didn't do that just to limit the strength or limit their strength as far as how much weight they could put on the bar, because obviously you couldn't go as heavy if you were only resting 15 to 30
because he's like
seconds.
8 sets of 8, 10 sets of 10, 4 or 5 exercises. He was doing cluster sets before it was called something.
Exactly.
Yeah. But like,
what was there? 6x6, 8x8, 10x10.
10x10. Yep.
So, and just a lot of, 4 or 5 exercises per muscle group. I mean, this was, and it worked incredibly well. So we want to dive into that. Well, let's just do that right now. What are your thoughts? I mean, I say that's kind of not the volume component, but his mechanical tension was so important to him. The mechanics itself, like he would just bust your balls if your form broke down at all. And is that where we are now?
He was the first meathead biomechanist, right? Ever, right? Of what I call it. Yeah, he was so far ahead of his time. Yeah, like the science-based trend, right? Which we have our viewpoints on.
With a D.
Yep. Yeah. Yes. We had a whole episode on that, by the way.
Yeah.
Not the trend without a D, but science-based.
Right.
But but like he was there, and like he was big on lengthen movements, right? If a muscle can't be fully stretched under load, he wasn't a fan of it. Like he came up with stuff before it was a thing, and it's just absolutely remarkable. Like, yeah, I'm always amazed by people who are that far ahead of their time, and then they're later proven to be right. You know,
exactly.
So.
Well, and listen, if you're today in 2026, how many people are not? Well, let's not do it that way. I would say that you would be in the minority if you weren't focused on a lot of the things that he was saying in the 60s and into the 70s. And even the 70s is kind of late, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, it was the 60s. It was in late 50s.
Yeah, so 40s and 50s he came on the scene when he opened his gym, right? And then that's the time he worked with, Clint Walker, Larry Scott, Don Howarth, a whole bunch of other stuff. And then 60s and 70s he started working with all the actors. Right. So at first it was still kind of niche. Yep. And then all of a sudden everybody sent him to him. There are a lot of fun stories online with just how merciless he was, especially with female actresses. Right. Of just, playing head games with them. Like, I'm sure what he said to them was way less PC and less nice than what he said to Arnold, right? So like, I can only
essentially called him a fat fuck. If that's that's one of the versions. It can't really be verified. But if you know anything about the guy at all, I don't doubt it for a second.
He was respected for his results, but not liked as a person.
And I think he was allowed to get away with it simply because he was so good. Yeah,
he was so good.
And I'm gonna be careful how I say this.
Okay.
I would not be surprised if that mentality back in that time that he got away with a lot of saying a lot of things and doing a lot of things that he'd be vilified.
Today.
Exactly.
Yeah,
he would have been vilified in this day and time. But I agree with you. A lot of people didn't like him, but it was almost kind of gosh, sycophantic. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah,
they
that's a good way to put it.
they
Yeah.
would just
Yeah.
you didn't want him to not like you. Like, I don't want
Yeah.
any of his attention on me, so I'm going to be
Mhm.
super nice to him to gain that advantage.
Yep.
So sycophantic by definition. Not everyone wants to stand on stage in a thong, but they might want to look like they do. You might be thinking, this guy is old. How could he possibly get me into my best condition, teach me how to optimize my training, and save me time while doing it? Reach out to me and let's discuss your goals for 2026. 25 years of online coaching, 41 years of training, 35 years of competing. That's a lot of experience and wisdom. Reach out and let's discuss your goals. So anyway, do you want to jump into this list, or am I
Yeah.
getting ahead of
Yeah.
myself?
No,
Okay.
let's do it. Because that way we could talk about stuff. And then I got a copy of his book called The Wild Physique. So I'll be able to add a couple like direct quotes from him
Yeah.
explaining things. So I think it'll be great. Yeah. Because Skip found this awesome list of Gironda gems of what he deemed as common errors in bodybuilding. So it'll be fun to go through as many as we can, what he said about it, and then how does it apply today? And
Exactly.
more than not, he's on to something.
I know, right? It's kind of
It's like, it's wild.
kind of
Like,
the
is he an alien?
Nostradamus
Yeah, is he
of
an alien? Like, did he have a
bodybuilding.
time
Yeah.
machine? Yeah.
He
Yep.
predicted all these things. Maybe not predicted, but a lot of what he was saying. I mean,
Yep.
because let's be fair, the 70s and outside his gym, the 70s, the 80s, arguably the 90s, no one's doing half of this stuff.
No.
They're
Nope.
setting to the side saying, like, if they even knew about it at all, it was
Yep.
about moving as much weight as possible. Form, I mean, come on, we can compare side
Mhm.
laterals to 30 years ago or even 20 years ago, and it's just day and night.
Yep. I
So,
will say, like, when I listened to him, I actually got some chest growth. So just putting it out there.
right.
Right.
And well, and I won't say too much else, because I
Yep.
think that these
The
gems
list
that
will
I
be
found
great. Yep.
will give us so much to talk
Oh
about.
my God. Yeah.
So
Like, we're gonna have to be really careful we don't turn this into 2 hours, because
yeah,
we absolutely
exactly.
can.
Exactly.
Yep.
So we'll go down the list, and I want to make sure that the viewers understand that this is a list of things that
That he wrote.
that he wrote, because he did. The guy wrote, I mean, he was incredibly, what's the, I can't come up with the term now, but the point is very well written. He would write,
Verbose.
yeah. Well, he was, I don't, yeah, verbose being a lot of words, but he was, I
Had-
am not having, I'm
yeah.
having a day.
Yeah.
I'm not having a great day.
English is hard for Skip today, everybody. So just give him a break.
At least today, give me a break.
Yeah.
But these are things that he was against. So, number one, obviously overtraining, but he kind of defined overtraining as the length of time that you're actually training in the gym. That's not what we refer to these days as overtraining, but he's saying anything over 45 minutes is overtraining for a time period, and that you're going to be, in the end, eventually overtrained. What do you think about that?
Yep. Well, man, it's kind of odd that, there's a guy named Ben Pokolsky who was really big on 40, hence the name MI40 Gym. Because on paper in a vacuum, around 40, 45 minutes, especially natural trainers, cortisol is starting to creep up. I don't like putting hard lines in the sand of saying 45 minutes is overtraining, but it's pretty remarkable that he kind of came up with that on his own without having access to blood work to see that.
Right.
That's when cortisol starts to really elevate.
And what does that do? Here's the thing. Here's what I like about it, because I'm with you. I don't like the arbitrary numbers, like, well, this is the line, you can't cross it. If it's a parameter, if it's some idea of like this mark that, okay, if you're going to get past that, you need to make sure that what you're doing is actually beneficial. Okay, then I'm good with that. But what it does do is it forces you, just like it does with cutting volume, to pay better attention to those sets and to make them better quality sets, to get more out of them. Nothing wrong with that.
Scrolling. Yeah, no scrolling with his workouts.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, and there's another argument in there, and I don't know if it's further down the list or not, but then it comes down to the rest periods too, because he had very, very short rest periods.
Yep.
And that is another
Yep.
argument that, okay, are you resting for 50 to 30 seconds? Yeah, you're going to get a lot of sets in 45 minutes versus resting for a couple minutes for maximum output. So there is
I believe
that.
that's the next one.
It is working out too slowly. Exactly.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
it's a tough one. it comes down a lot of times to preference because I can tell. Look, I've trained a million different ways over the years. I always like the fast paced, low rest periods. I do think it increases intensity, but at the same time, it is going to be limiting. I mean, you're already going back into another set and your lungs are going to fail before the muscle. I mean, there's a solid argument with
Yep.
that. So, it's a
Yeah.
tough one.
And then, like, on paper, a study came out saying 2 minutes is the best for hypertrophy and size. But I'm like, okay, that makes sense for, like, leg compound movements. But I'm not going to wait 2 minutes between a calf set or a curl set. But
Right.
again, yeah. But he
Versus
was
bent
big
over
on,
rows.
yep. But he was big on being super lean. So you could see why. Yep.
And the look. He's
hmm
basically saying,
The
correct me if
V
I'm wrong,
taper is the big thing with
but he's
him.
not saying just chase as much size as possible.
hmm
You
Yep.
don't want as much growth as possible. You want pretty growth. You want aesthetic. We call it
Yep.
today, we call it symmetry, which is kind of funny because
It's not what it
symmetry is
used
a
to be.
balance, typically left to right, but it can be upper body to lower body too. It's essentially I want to be able to define this the best way that I can because I've always said left to right, but it's not necessarily left to right. What it is it's just a balance to either above or below a line or left or right of a line. Okay.
Yep.
Could even be anterior, posterior too. But we use symmetry in this way that we should be calling it aesthetics
Balance,
versus
whatever word you want to
symmetry.
use. Yep.
Exactly. Because at the end of the day, we do want to look as symmetrical as possible left to right and from lower body to upper body and front to back. But that's more about balance and aesthetics. And I think that those words, those labels, those definitions, they've kind of been convoluted. They're kind of, we have different meanings for them now. So number 3, full sit-ups and leg raises. I mean, come on, the sit-ups, I think we can all agree that.
So I've got some info about that.
Okay.
So to his credit, back then people thought you could spot reduce fat, and he said no. So
Good point.
good for him.
Yep.
And this will come up later, but from his book, most people are unaware that the full sit-up and leg raises exercise are not primary abdominal movements. True, there is some midsection involvement. They are not pure waistline exercises. To understand the action of the abdominal muscles is to shorten the distance between the pelvic basin, your pelvis, and your sternum. It has little to do with full leg raise or sit-ups except in the contracted range of motion. The partial sit-up, lifting the body only 1/4, 1/2 of the way, is a much better abdominal builder.
Okay, is he saying 1/4, 1/2 of the way from the lengthened, like the full open position, or from the top?
No, from the full lengthen. He didn't want you going all the way up. And
really?
Then, yep.
Okay.
What's interesting is then, so lifting the body only 1/4 or 1/2 of the way is a better abdominal builder. He was also big on taking a bunch of, what he called lipotropics, right? Which weren't 100% accurate. But again, we didn't have studies, and he was advocating choline, methionine, inositol, lipase. He called safflower oil vitamin F, which was pretty funny, lecithin, betaine, and animal fat. There is some stuff with fat emulsification and methylation, like not true fat burners, but again, how the hell did he figure this out?
Yeah.
And then, so he was big on that, which makes a lot of sense. And then I'm just going to bring up the next one because I have another quote that goes right into it, because he didn't like abdominals every workout. Now, this is where he gets a little off. Because they obtain the best supply in the body, the abdominals do not have to be worked with dozens of high rep sets every day. This is definitely not a good idea. You will smooth out your abs and subject your system to a degree of shock that could hinder gains if you overwork these sensitive muscles. Simply work the abs using 8 to 12 reps with 4 to 5 sets per exercise. Beginning bodybuilders hoping to make fast muscle gains should never do direct abdominal movements. The midsection gets quite enough activity from regular weight training exercises, which is a theme now. So, right, pretty interesting.
Yeah, but I want to go back to the leg raises and the sit-ups real quick.
Okay.
Because, and here's why. For abdominal development, like the abdominal wall, I agree with him. I do. I think there needs the movement should be isolative and they should focus on the abdominal wall. But there's a lot to be said, especially for leg lifts, to be able to provide strength, not just through the abs, but through the entire hips and be beneficial for the lower back as well, obliques,
Mhm.
everything. So I know I've been injury free in my lower back for a little bit over 10 years now because we're coming into 2026.
Mhm.
And a big part of that reason is because I had put those leg raises back into my abdominal workouts. So I
Mhm.
think there's a lot of benefit there. So here's the caveat though. When he was not big on squats and deads and doing a lot of these big movements that aren't supposed to be great for keeping your waist small and keeping your hips small, which I completely agree
Mhm.
with, then you may not need that added support if you're only training aesthetically and you're going for an aesthetic or what I would call a classic look these days.
Mhm.
The only thing is in saying the classic look is our classic look in 2025, 2026 is not what he was at. It would still be deemed way too big, I think, based on his definition if we went
Mhm. Yeah.
back to that time, when he was training people.
And
So,
we know, like, full range sit-ups, the military doesn't do them anymore. Why? There's a lot of shearing force on your
mhm,
low back. So,
sure.
like, yep.
And I'm
So,
not a big fan of sit-ups, but I will say this, I
mhm.
would go against him and I would say I like the top 1/3, one
Mhm.
half
Yep.
because I
Yep.
like that contraction of the abdominals.
Mhm.
And here's what's kind of let me know if you agree with me on this or not. I see him saying to use the first 1/3. What did he say again? Just so I don't mess the numbers up. 1/3, one
It
quarter, one
was
half.
1/4 to 1/2.
Okay, 1/4, one half from the lengthened position. I mean, this is kinda like a leg lift. I mean,
Mhm.
why would you not go with the shortened,
Mhm.
arguably skip version? Only because that's my
Mhm.
opinion. Obviously, I didn't create that, so don't
Yep.
beat me up in the
Mhm.
comments. Beat me up for, like, my GH face or something else. Uh, I've been beat up for a lot of
Yeah.
stupid shit
Yeah.
recently. But anyway,
Yeah. Yeah.
I see that as the top portion, and I would think that that's
Mhm.
more benefit.
Mhm.
Every now and then, I'll put them in. The
Mhm.
only reason I
We
haven't done them in 6, 8 months is because the decline that I have at my gym is so high
Mhm. Yep.
that I literally can't breathe while I'm
Mhm.
doing them. And if I'm staying up in that top
Yeah.
position, it's like I wanna pass out. It just doesn't
Mhm.
work.
And then we talked about in our core episode, yeah, you want to go top down and bottom up, right, for
Mhm.
proper ab development, let alone, injury prevention and performance, like you talked about. Um, so again, I am reading a quote. While you're reading the next one, I could confirm, but it says lifting the body only 1/4 or 1/2 of the way.
Yeah. That's
Uh,
just an odd way. And
hmm
the other argument too, I don't wanna focus too much on these 2,
hmm
but the
Yeah.
other thing too is what does he mean by leg raises? Does he mean hanging leg raises or
hmm
lying leg raises? And again, I'm a bigger fan of the lying leg raise because that has been more beneficial for me with the support of my lower back and
hmm
and being able to stay injury
And
free.
most people do not do them
No.
correctly.
No,
Yep.
they do no, they
Yep.
do not. But
Yeah,
go
half
ahead.
sit up. Nope, you're lying on the ground. Yep, half sit up, upper abdominal,
Huh.
stiff leg raise, rectus abdominis. So he's using that for your upper quads.
Mhm.
And he's lying on the ground and his legs are only going a little bit.
I wonder where he was. Obviously, would he have been a big fan of the Roman chair sit up then?
He has a Roman chair in here, I believe.
It's just an
I'm pretty
odd
sure I saw it. I'm
that's
pretty
just
sure
an
I
odd
saw a
one. And
Roman
when I
chair.
first started training in the '80s, I used
Yep.
it. I thought it was
Yep.
I got very strong
But
at it. I also
then
got big
again,
obliques out of it.
yep, he is an anti side bends, but in his book,
Mhm.
he has side bends. So like
Yeah.
he would kind of contradict, but again, he's been training people for 40 years,
Sure.
right? So you are going to change your mind. Performance chiropractic and sports medicine in the Houston Bay Area, telemedicine and nutrition coaching all over Texas. And if you're not in Texas, don't worry. You still do consults through the educatedmeathead.com, where you also find workout programs, seminar recordings, and online courses.
Look, I'm only going against what he says because he can't
Yep.
come after me. I mean,
Yeah.
if the guy was
Yep.
still alive, even in his older age,
Mhm.
I don't know if I wouldn't get punched in the side of the
He
face
would
during the
be
podcast.
attacking us. Yes. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If he were on social media, I'm sure he'd tag me and just
Mhm.
wreck me,
Mhm.
threaten
Yep.
to kick my ass and everything else. Anyway, next one, working upper body and legs on the same day.
Mhm.
Yeah. I'm okay. Do you have any idea? I mean, that's a pretty vague
Yep. So
comment.
taxes the leg, the CNS. So he's quoted as, if you squat hard, your upper body training that day is wasted. To him, leg training hurts the pump, and he was obsessed about the pump and blood flow. To him, they stole blood and recovery resources of training the same day. And then again, back then, he went against the grain. Back then, people said hormonal response. You work a big muscle, then you train your upper body or your arms, your biceps will grow, right? So he said, he's quoted as saying, growth is local, not global, which, I mean,
Not wrong, but maybe not what we
yeah,
would say. You know,
correct. Because
it's
I still go, right. There's that old mentality. You put on 10 pounds of muscle, your arms are going to grow 1/2 to 1 inch already. I think that's a little simplification.
I know, right?
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, but again, he was going against the grain because everybody thought you could spot reduce, and if I train legs,
Sure.
then my sex hormones are boosted, so then I'll magically grow arms. So
Mhm.
again, not half bad.
The only thing that I would counter with that, because I think that's pretty good advice. The only thing I would
Mhm.
counter is I don't think that that it would be detrimental to do some
No.
arm training on the same day
Mhm.
that you then move into legs, because arm training shouldn't be
Mhm.
such a fatigue factor that it would impact a
Correct.
leg workout. But doing it
Yep.
the other way around, training legs and then trying to train arms,
Mhm.
no, that's
Yep.
no.
Yeah, I love Dante's two-way DC, right? Where it's biceps and forearms and then legs.
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
Time to musk up.
Wow. It never ceases to amaze me. What clone you going with? London Gentleman? Or wait. No. Blackbeard's Delight?
No, she gets a special cologne. It's called Panther by Odeon. It's illegal in 9 countries. Yep, it's made with bits of real panther, so you know it's good.
It's quite pungent.
Oh yeah.
It's a formidable scent. It stings the nostrils. In a good way.
Yep.
Brian, I'm going to be honest with you. That smells like pure gasoline.
In studies, you know, 60% of the time, it works every time.
That doesn't make sense.
Well, let's go see if we can make this little kitty purr.
I
Yeah.
love that setup. Yep.
All right. Not touching the chest to the bar and calling it chinning. I
Yep, I've got-
actually like this.
Mhm.
But
And I've
come
got a
on,
lot
when
of
was the last
quotes.
time we saw someone within the last 10 years do a chin with the bar touching the I mean, you have to be an aesthetic, not necessarily a big guy, to be able to do a chin. Not just
Yes.
one, but sets of them. Remember, he's doing what?
A lot.
Yeah, he's doing a lot. I mean, I don't know that would fall in the 8x8, but yeah, your chins. You're not saying a lat pull, you're saying a chin. You can't
Mhm.
be a big dude and be able
Yep.
to do multiple sets
Mhm.
of chins taking the bar. And it wasn't to the top of the chest. It was literally, his thing was to the bottom of the pec line.
Yep.
That's not
So-
playing.
The biggest mistake I've observed in lat work is not completing the movement or full contraction.
And I do
This-
agree with that,
Mhm.
but I don't
'Cause we
think the
know-
bar has to touch the chest to
No.
get that.
But biomechanically, yep, on a wide elbow out, your lat really kicks in once we're
Mhm.
below 90 degrees.
That's true. Yeah.
So the way is to the nipples touch it. I realize this isn't practical for women because they lack the arm strength of men, although I have seen a number of women in my gym who could outdo them. And then he liked parallel bar chins as well,
Mhm.
or pull-ups, right?
Okay.
Now, again, pretty interesting. He was anti-lower lat development. I am emphatically against lower lat development because it messes up the V shape. But kudos to him. I especially advocate the development of the teres major. Few bodybuilders are aware of this muscle, which lies directly below the rear deltoids. We're going back to our elbow episode. This is why I constantly recommend seated pulley work to the lower pec line of the chest. So he had
Mhm.
already figured out elbow positioning. So
Sure.
again, man, absolutely incredible. But I'm not doing pull-ups to touch my chest. Like, that's pretty freaking
It's still
remarkable.
counterintuitive when you're saying
Yep.
that contraction matters, and to pull that to the bar that
That's a
low
lot.
and then
Yep.
say, no, I'm not good with lat development. I mean,
yeah,
it's,
lower lat development.
yeah.
Yeah. So it's interesting.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But even then, I mean, then it gets into the argument, what is the lower lat? I mean, come on.
Correct.
Yeah,
Yep.
you know,
But
I think a lot of that's
his
a genetic
argument
thing.
was, it messes up your V taper because it attaches above the waist.
Right. Well, and let's
So.
just real quick,
Mhm.
one of the more one of the exercises that is more for lower lats would be a neutral grip in
Mhm.
close and pulling where? Low on the
Mhm.
pec line.
Yep. Yep.
So
Yep.
it's
Correct.
just
Yeah.
it's counterintuitive
Mhm.
to me.
Yep.
Okay.
Mhm.
Next one. Not raising up on the big toe when doing toe presses. Brilliant. I mean,
Mhm. Yep.
that's huge.
Yep. So he was very specific with calf training, which I love. So he had a 3-day training cycle. First day was heavy. Second day was light pump. Third, rest and repeat.
Yeah.
So he got a little stuff wrong, but he also got some stuff right. So as a general rule, calves require more reps than any other muscle in the body due to the great number of muscle fibers. The biceps have about 40,000 muscle fibers, while the calf muscle has 1.2 million fibers in a concentrated area. That's not right. Bicep has around
Hyperbolic,
250.
maybe?
Yep. Calves have a lot, but not 1.2. But the frequency, like we talked about on our calf training episode, is due to the fiber type distribution.
Yeah.
But here's where he gets it right. Big stretch advocate. Now, maybe a little excessive. So I believe that you should be able to touch your heels to the floor when your toes are on a 4-inch block. And you should also be able to get fully up on your toes. Most of the weight should be on the first big toes. And then we got one more quote, but we talked about it. That's awesome because if you lose pressure on your big toe, you're now using your posterior tibialis, not your gastroc. And for him, a toe raise was a standing calf raise. He separated that from a donkey. And then he also, in his book, loved the hack squat for calf raises.
And 4 inches, I mean, you could 4 inches, that's a long, that's
It is.
big,
Yeah. And our definition is going to be different than our significant others. And then high reps and pressure, which I love. I've experimented for 1 year with heavy weights and low reps, 10 reps with no success. 20 reps is the answer. If you wish to develop the diamond peak of the calf, you must keep your knees slightly bent during the movement. I love the high rep stuff, like we've talked about, and he was big on a stretch. Like he was figuring out, I need to load my calf in the stretch. So kudos to him. And I like his training mentality, by the way. Like 1 day heavy and hard, the next day light pump, fill it full of blood, third day rest, rinse and repeat.
But his heavy wasn't our current definition of heavy, just to be clear.
And he's big on peak contraction, full range of motion, which, yes, people argue the gastroc has active insufficiency, which is true, but I still like people holding that peak position, pushing through the big toe knuckle. So if you learn anything from this, next time you do calf raises, make sure you're pushing through that big toe knuckle. It's a game changer.
Yep, agreed. And I do want to add too that 2025, 2026, you're not being judged on your calves. There's a lot of great physiques with horrible calves, and the posing on your rear double bicep and your rear lat spread is not to maximize the appearance of the calves anyway. We do not have those two poses now are not to put the calf in a fully contracted position. It's the most bizarre thing.
Yeah.
But so if you're training calves now and you want great calves, which I think everybody should, because it's just a great look.
You want cows, not calves.
Right. But they're to walk around with, they're to be at the beach with, they're to be in shorts with, because you're not going to gain much of anything.
I swear to God,
on stage.
I'm more impressed with a big ass set of calves than I am arms. When I see big calves,
because
I'm like,
we know
either
it takes a lot
you're
more
either
to get
genetically blessed like Scott McNally, you were formerly obese, or you have worked your ass off like you did developing a set of cows. Unfortunately, by the time you developed them,
it didn't matter.
But
Yeah.
I'm still a huge advocate of cows,
Which is
not
funny
calves.
because if I'm gonna get a compliment, typically that's what it's gonna be,
Yep.
is your calves are crazy. And, you know, they're
Mhm.
not Scott McNally calves, don't get me wrong, but
Yep.
they are still impressive,
Mhm.
and I had to work. I mean, I laugh and say it took well over 10 years to get a good set of calves.
Yep.
All right, next one, number 8, bench presses for pecs. Bad idea because he says it's 90% front deltoid. How many
Mhm.
years has it taken us to get? We were told by Vince years ago, but you know what? We're gonna do them.
Mhm.
I think honestly, it's more of an ego alpha male, you
Yep.
know, what do you bench type of thing.
Mhm.
And here's the part that also kind of sells the movement. Typically, people with good chest development, especially either in high school, college. Now, I'm not talking about necessarily on stage. Maybe back in the day that was true, but these days I don't think it's true. We have gone away, thankfully, from the bench pressing, unless you go to Crunch Fitness or Planet
Mhm.
Fitness, and you know these places where there is still a lot of this
Yep.
ego lifting. I saw some of it today at Busybody, and you know people can do what they
Mhm.
want to do.
Mhm.
I'm not gonna subconsciously I am, because I did
Mhm.
make the mental note of that guy just isn't big. I thought he was gonna eat 295, and he did eke out 3 or 4 of them, but I just thought, bro, that's impressive to go around and tell people, but no one's gonna believe you when you tell them anyway, because you don't
Yeah.
look like you're gonna move
Mhm.
that kind of weight. But to each their own. I don't want anybody beating
Mhm.
me up on it. You can do whatever the hell you want to do in the gym. It doesn't impact me at the end of the
Mhm.
day at all.
Yep. So he preferred Vince style dips, which are the best chest dip
Mhm.
possible. And then he liked his guillotine press, which we've talked about.
Yep.
And he even ignores, I get a lot of static for my claim that the bench press is all front delt. A lot of guys have built big chests with the bench press, but I don't see much impressive in spite of this. I prefer the collar to collar grip neck press, so the guillotine. And he even, said, Serge Nubret developed his pecs through flat bench. But if you look at pictures of Serge, like we talked about in that episode, he's got a steep
Yeah.
sternal angle, so
Yeah.
a bench is going to hit it.
Mhm.
And then he even talked about, incline benches, lowering the bar to the very top. Yes, it hits the upper chest, he said, based on evidence of the degree of upper pec soreness. However, growth may still be more pronounced in the lower and middle third of the pectoral area, which may only receive 10% of the stimulation because that area is more conducive to growth. And like I said, the guillotine and his style dips, when my elbows and shoulder were just destroyed, I still got more growth once I learned more biomechanics, but not knowing anything, I started doing those. I started going from a negative chest to some growth. So super awesome, but they need to be respected because they are putting your shoulder in a position that could be vulnerable if you don't respect it.
So basically what Vince was saying was he wasn't against bench pressing. He was against bench pressing in the traditional way.
Yep.
So there were exceptions, but I'm going to go on record. I'm going to say this. I think in 2025, 2026, I think that the vast majority of people with the advances or the advancements in equipment, and even if you don't have the equipment, dumbbell presses, in my opinion, done correctly, are going to be superior because they provide a better range of motion.
Yep. We talked about it in our most risky exercises. 80% of all pec tears are on a barbell
Right.
movement. Yeah. And
And
we've
I've had
thankfully
years and
gotten
years of
away from that
benching,
in 2025. Yep.
and I have not
But
had a pec tear, but
because why? When are you doing your bench? First thing right out the gates to stack 4 plates
well, I
aside?
did for years, if I'm being
Okay.
honest. And I
Yep.
look back at some of those numbers, and I was never I wasn't going to be the strongest guy in the gym, but I had some decent numbers, back in the early 2000s. And I still look back and I go, I don't know how I didn't. And I think at the end of
Yeah.
the day, it was the fact that my mechanics were about as good. My shoulder position, everything was very, very good. Otherwise, I would have been injured. I guarantee. And you know what? Maybe I was a few times. Maybe I was this
Close. Yeah.
close. You don't know. Could have been.
Yep.
And I just, there was a little bit of luck involved. Number 10, deep knee bends. This one always throws me because deep knee bends, I'm like, knee bends aren't going to make anybody big. But that was
Yep.
his term or his label for barbell squatting.
For ass to grass barbell
Ass to
squatting.
grass. Thank you.
Yep.
Yep. Good
Yep.
point.
Yeah. So to him, ass to grass was 90% glutes. So I have been accused of being against regular back squat, and there's a great deal of truth to the claim. Here, like, listen to this. The squat spreads the hips. I am vehemently against the practice of heavy back squatting, whereby the trainer comes up with his behind, i.e. a stripper squat, and then proceeds to go to the upright position, raising his back and finally his head.
Yeah.
Heavy squatting in this manner builds huge upper thighs, hips, and buttocks, none of which you want.
And adductors. He just left that out.
Yeah. And then on the other hand, you may find squats make your hip measurement gains as much as your thigh and widen your lower back, destroying the taper. But he liked regular back squats, no going past parallel. I'm trying to speed it up, especially for women, because it works the entire leg and glute area. But he figured out that most people, when they're ego lifting, are doing hip dominant squats, which, if you don't know what the hell we're talking about, I think it was like episode 5 or 6. That's just incredible to me. Like the turnip legs John Meadows would talk about.
Sure.
But like he figured that out. But yeah, deep knee bends. That's why I was like, whoa. I need to look at his book of what he was talking about.
But he was off on a couple things. Number one, I think you would agree, especially being the studies guy, it's not really the glutes that are going to pull you out of the hole. It's more the adductors.
Yeah.
So what do we have with leg? I mean, if you take leg development 2026 and you look at leg development
it's
when he was
different sport.
And arguably, I'm going to go on record. I'm going to say, look, I think it's ugly. I think
the current trends.
Yes, the current trend is ugly. It's all adductor. The glutes and the hips have become so boxy from the rear. It's, to me, it's just really give me classic legs, glutes, adductors all day long. It is a completely different look, and I think it looks great. And you can still have big legs in classic. We see this all the time. So to me, it ranks right up there with gaining so much size through the chest, back, and shoulders, but in turn gaining an equal amount of size through the midsection and the obliques. And that's just, it's akin to what we're doing, I think, as an industry or as a sport with legs. We are getting bigger measurements out of the quads, but it's because the adductors are so big and the glutes and the hips right along with it. I'm just saying I'm not a fan. So if you're listening and you're a fan, that's fine. You're not wrong. I'm not wrong. It's just a preference, but I don't like it. I don't think it's very aesthetic. I don't think it's very pretty at all.
Yeah, it's just boxy as hell. Turnip legs is the best description from Meadows, rest in peace. Yep, I completely agree. But I mean, that's pretty remarkable that he figured that out.
And I do want to jump down to number 13 real quick. And you know what? You probably should call this, the last one, because we've got so many of them, but I think this one's a good one to end on. Cheating exercises. He was not a fan of loose mechanics. So maybe that's why he was always so irritated with Arnold. I don't know. And look, there's pros and cons. If you're going to, cheat because let's just take curls as an example. He was huge on the drag curl. He did not like momentum. He wanted the elbows pulled back. And I think it's a great exercise. I like the reason that he wanted to do that. Take the front delt out of it. Okay, cool. But I don't know, unless you were genetically gifted back then. Was that the reason? Like, was he creating big arms or bigger arms with drag curls than regular curls? I can't say that he was.
Yeah, and that's a lot of brachialis. And for him, I believe, I'm going from memory of looking at the book, I think he said, curls, the traditional curls is like 80% front delt or 90%. Like he did a big number. I was like, I don't know if it's that much, but if you're doing the swinging, absolutely. So like, he was the mechanics guy before that was a thing. And again, if you don't know anything about him, look into it. It's pretty interesting. We've named the exercises that I personally love. He called the future of what most people are doing these days. So kudos to him.
Yeah, and there's a lot of good information there. So, if anybody's listening, they're like, wow, Skip just unloaded on him and said everything that Vince said was, it was wrong. That's not the case at all. I mean, unfortunately, look, if I were as well known as Vince Gironda in another 40 years, then someone could pick apart what, all of us say, myself included. So on the one hand, it's not very fair. I'm just making the contrast. And I want to point out that a lot of what he said does still hold true, and it holds true for a more pleasing physique, a more aesthetically
Mhm.
pleasing physique. So he got far more right
Oh, yeah.
than I would say that he got wrong or that I would look,
Mhm.
like I said, in another 40 or 50 years, if the things that I have said are scrutinized, I would
Mhm.
hope and I would be pretty happy if the vast majority of what I said was accurate and couldn't be picked apart too much.
Like, yeah, his ratio is way over 50%
Yeah, oh
of
yeah.
being it right.
Oh yeah.
Like, way over.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, kudos to him.
Yep. And we didn't even get into the nutrition because a lot of his
Mhm.
nutrition stuff was, some of it was kind of out there, but the core of
Mhm.
what he was saying,
Yeah.
it was,
He
it was
said
good.
optimal eating bodybuilding is 85% nutrition,
Mhm.
is his book.
And he did not like the smooth look. He wanted people to have really
Mhm.
good
Yep.
definition and to be
Yep.
very lean. And that's
Look up
why
his
he
yeah,
said that about Arnold.
look up his picture. He was a lifetime natural. Dude was jacked and pretty damn aesthetically pleasing.
This is a real good way to end on this note is what he said about Arnold. Is it not what a lot of us are saying about Derek Lunsford?
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
40 years later, 50 years
Yep.
later, it's been a minute, 55 years later, depends on where you want
Mhm.
to, what part of Vince's career, if you will,
Yep.
that you're focusing on. But yeah, there's a lot there. And the same arguments still hold true. What, 50 years later?
Mhm.
On that note, we got to get to getting the Skip,
Mhm.
Dr. Marv splitting. If you enjoyed the show, be sure to like, subscribe, I don't know, share, ring the bell, hit the hype button. You didn't like the show, pretend you did. Like, subscribe, share, ring the bell anyway. Should sound a little something like this. Be sure to use the TrueNutrition.com link to save 10% on not just Team Skip Protein, but every supplement they sell. Dr. Marv, they can reach out to you, I believe, at theeducatedmeathead.com. You can reach out to
Mhm.
me at teamskip.com. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to click on the link right here for another episode of Between Two Dumbbells.